Aventurine probably has the most overloaded base kit when it comes to preservation characters. Very tough stackable shields, automatic shield refreshes, inflicts debuffs, impressive toughness breaking capabilities, and damage dealing potential. This guide will help you decide whether you go for a sustain-focused or sub-damage dealer Aventurine, while teaching you how to build him optimally for that specific role. If you found the guide helpful, consider liking the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on up-to-date information. I always read everyone's comments, so feel free to ask questions that were not answered in the video. Without further ado. A high-ranking executive of the IPC's Strategic Investment Department, a risk-taker. His constant smile makes it difficult for people to discern his true feelings. Aventurine is a 5-star imaginary element character that constantly provides stackable shields and offers other utilities to the team. He follows the preservation path. Aventurine's kit is far from being complex. If we are to summarize his gameplay, he simply needs to spam basic attacks and only use his skill to prepare for incoming burst damage. The reason for this is due to how his talent works. Whenever it reaches 7 stacks, Aventurine will automatically perform a follow-up attack that deals imaginary damage and generates shields for the team through his A6 trace. Aventurine can generate stacks through his ultimate talent and A6 trace. Each time Aventurine uses his ultimate, he will randomly generate between 1 to 7 stacks. His talent allows him to generate stacks each time an ally gets hit. If Aventurine himself gets hit, he gains double the amount of stacks. The amount of stacks this talent can generate is not capped, meaning if the whole team gets hit by an AoE attack, Aventurine instantly gains 5 stacks. Lastly, his A6 trace would generate a stack each time an ally performs a follow-up attack. This is capped at 3 stacks for each turn of Aventurine, meaning if you somehow manage to have allies perform 4 follow-up attacks without Aventurine taking his turn, it would only give him 3 stacks at max. Unfortunately, Aventurine doesn't count himself as an ally, so his own follow-up attack does not generate 1 stack after it triggers. Aside from everything that has been mentioned, all you really need to know is that Aventurine's skill can be stacked up to 200% of its original shield durability. Due to its stacking mechanics, it becomes natural that any time Aventurine triggers his follow-up attacks, the shield it generates would stack with the current active shields and refresh its duration. When it comes to his talent, it can go beyond 7 stacks and cap at 10. This means that if you are already at 5 out of 7 stacks and rolled 6 more stacks through his ultimate, you will cap at 10 stacks. Then, Aventurine will trigger his follow-up attack and reduce his stacks by 7, which resets you back to 3 out of 10 stacks. The idea is simple. It is to have Aventurine focus more on his supporting capabilities. You simply need to give him very durable shields through high defense stats and high speed to generate as many skill points as he could. Luckily, a support Aventurine is not picky at all when it comes to light cones, but there are definitely ones that stand out. Obviously, his signature light cone is his best option due to its extremely high base defense stat and high defense percentage boost. It can also apply a vulnerability debuff which helps the team deal more damage. Moment of victory for the high defense boosts. The increased aggro helps Aventurine get hit more frequently, which helps with his stacks. An alternative to this is Landau's choice. Day 1 of my new life could greatly improve the shield durability of the whole team. Trend of the universal market could apply damage overtime that could help certain characters. For the Cavern Relics, you should definitely go for 4-piece Knight. Aim for defense main stat for the body and speed main stat for the boots. For the planner set, you can go for either Ageless, Broken Keel, or Penacony. Aim for defense main stat for both rope and sphere. Aventurine's follow-up attacks are enough to act as extra energy regen source, so he doesn't need an energy rope. The reason I wouldn't recommend Bellow Bog is due to the fact that its effect barely adds any extra shield at this point. As the title already implies, this section is dedicated to building an Aventurine that balances his kit around providing shields and dealing as much damage as he can. The reason why this can be a strong build option for Aventurine is due to his A4 trace. For every 100 of Aventurine's defense that exceeds 1600, his own critical chance is increased by 2%, up to a maximum of 48%. This simply means that if you can get Aventurine's defense stat to 4000, he will have a total of 53% default critical chance, making it extremely easy to get him a proper critical build. Combine this with the fact that his attacks have decent modifiers and scales towards his massive defense stats. It is not particularly hard to see that Aventurine is designed to be a sustain with damage-dealing capabilities. In fact, the background video itself is an E0S1 Aventurine clearing MOX 6-second half in just one cycle. Here is Aventurine's light cone ranking. All builds prioritize achieving 4000 defense, which causes some light cones to be weaker. As expected, Inherently Unjust Destiny is Aventurine's best in slot. It currently has the highest base defense stat out of all preservation light cones. The massive defense boost and vulnerability debuff both helps at improving his shields and damage potential. A rank 5 Concert for 2 is Aventurine's second best LC. It is strong due to its combined high defense boost and damage boost. Aventurine is lacking in the damage boost department, so getting it from light cones gives a significant performance increase. The Battle Pass Preservation LC is underwhelming, despite its impressive defense stat for a 4-star light cone. However, it does have a particularly strong synergy with supports that provide energy. For the Cavern Relics, his best in slot would be 4-piece Pioneer, but you can opt for a combination of Pioneer and Grand Duke. You can still use a 2-piece Knight, but it won't be as optimal. For the Planar set, go for Inert Salsado. When it comes to picking the main stats, it really depends on which light cone you are using. Here's an infographic you can follow. Note that these setups take into account that you don't particularly have perfect substat rolls. In the case that you do have perfect rolls, then any light cone should be using the same setup with the one used for his signature light cone and Moment of Victory. His first Eidolon provides a 20% critical damage increase to teammates with Fortified Wager. Fortified Wager basically refers to Aventurine's shields. When he uses his ultimate, all allies with Fortified Wager gain a shield that has the same durability and duration coming from his skill. An excellent Eidolon that could truly convert Aventurine into a true SP-positive support. His second Eidolon allows his basic attacks to apply a 12% all-type damage resistance reduction for 3 turns. Pretty straightforward. His fourth Eidolon allows his follow-up attack to provide a 2-turn 40% defense boost before hitting enemies with an increased hit count of 3, meaning instead of 7 hits that caps at 175% modifier, it now caps at 10 hits with 250% modifier, making his follow-up attacks hit almost as hard as his ultimate. His final Eidolon provides a 50% damage increase for every ally that has an active shield, which caps at 150%. This is an extremely powerful Eidolon that would convert Aventurine into a full-fledged damage dealer. For optimization purposes, an E6 Aventurine should swap a damage sphere into a defense sphere. Aventurine's main role is to act as the team's sustain, and he can definitely slot into pretty much any team composition. So instead of listing down an ideal team setup, let's talk about synergies and anti-synergies instead. The most notable characters that synergize with Aventurine are definitely Topaz, Yanking, and Acheron. Topaz due to the sheer amount of follow-up attacks she performs, which generates stacks for Aventurine. Aventurine in return also performs follow-up attacks to push Numby forward. Yanking is similar to Topaz, where he can also perform follow-up attacks but less frequently. Aventurine in return will provide the much-needed shields for Yanking, which prevents Yanking's buff from deactivating. Although one-sided, Aventurine is the best sustain for Acheron, because he can inflict debuffs through his ultimate, and possibly with his follow-up attacks if equipped with his signature light cone. An alternative would be Universal Market. If you want to go further with this synergy, Aventurine's E2 will allow him to apply a debuff through his basic attacks. In general, characters with follow-up attacks or needs Aventurine's shield have good synergy with him. It is not limited to just Topaz and Yanking. Be aware that there are characters like Clara and Blade who can perform follow-up attacks, but would prefer to get themselves hit than Aventurine. Blade especially wants his HP to get reduced for his own stacks, and Aventurine's shields would prevent this. If you can recall, I mentioned earlier that Aventurine gets 2 stacks if he gets hit directly, so anyone who steals aggro from him can be considered anti-synergy. Overall, Aventurine will definitely sit on top with our current sustained titans. I'd even argue that he will kick out Luocha from the top 3 best sustains in the game, leaving the top 3 to Huohuo, Fushuan, and himself. Should you try to pull Aventurine if you get the chance? It really depends. As always, getting a sustain that overperforms will always be questionable because every other sustain character works perfectly fine, albeit some need more effort to use. So if you want a reason to pull for Aventurine, there could be 2 main reasons. One is that you want his ease of use. Aventurine's kit is just 2 stacked, and would definitely make your life much easier. 2 is that Aventurine is a legitimate sub-damage dealer. Despite his strong sustain capabilities, Aventurine is no slouch at dealing damage. This could be a huge fun factor to some players who always wanted a sustain that is very versatile. And that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next one.